Okay, let's chat now to One SA movement leader, Mmusi Maimane, on that proposed call for this stay away of both learners and teachers on Friday. Very good evening to you, Mr. Maimane. Thanks indeed for your time.
Good evening, and good evening to fellow South Africans.
Mr. Maimane, why a call for a stay away by both teachers and learners nationally on Friday? This is just a couple of days after you lost that court bid to have the decision to reopen schools that basically had not worked in court.
Well, I think it's important that when we take this battle, when we went to court, it was on the 1st of June. Infection rates were lower than what they are today. South Africa is heading in the next 2 weeks in what typically can be described as the peak period. Infection rates are rising. The number of people who are dying are increasing. So the fire is now raging. And yet it would seem that we are speaking to a government that is tone deaf to the cries of the poor, who say they don't have toilets, they don't have facilities, they don't have masks, and they're being asked to go to school where teachers are playing rotation because one is getting infected this week and then next week the next one is. So our call now is that heading towards Friday, parents, teachers, learners must send a message to this government to say now it is your policy that is deciding. The courts, in this instance, and I respect the judgment, and that judgment we are studying carefully to make a decision about how we take it forward. But at this point in time, let us be conscious that now we are dealing with the policy of the government, and the government must hear the cries of the people to say, the fires are raging, infections are rising. Please, let us shut schools until we get through this peak period that we need to go through. And they have the power to do it instantly. No court would be able to tell them by Friday to do so. And we are concerned about the number of people.
Mr. Maimane, you based your court application initially on the fact that over this concern that, both the learners as well as teachers would be at massive risk if they go back to school or the schooling process would restart under this current climate. We heard the minister say during the briefing on Sunday that there is no scientific evidence that would basically show that both teachers and learners would be more at risk if there are schools. You clearly don't seem to buy that.
The minister is sending information that, to me, frankly, is not credible. Let me say that she was below 1% for teachers. Now, on what is she giving that? On what basis is that? Are you here to tell me that they've tested the teaching population? She herself concluded her press briefing by simply saying that actually they are uncertain at this point in time whether schools are centers upon which the virus is able to spread. Second, Tristan Cape has already confirmed the number of learners that have been infected and the number of teachers who are succumbing to the virus. Thirdly, we know that even if the scientific evidence they're depending on say that young people or children are asymptomatic, what that means is that technically those young children will go home, infect or go, infect the grandfathers, because now we don't know whether or not they have been able to get the virus or not. Lastly, as we head into this peak period, ask anybody. I have South Africans who have called me. They will test today. The next time they'll be able to get their test results is 7 days or 8 days time from now. That is the lag time in real terms. So in essence, you are saying to a teacher, go to school, you don't know whether you are positive or negative. The way you qualify for a test, you have to prove symptoms. So if you don't have any of those, you can carry on infecting people. We are creating schools that become petri dishes upon which learners and the virus can spread into our communities.
But what about those who say, what about those also, Mr. Maimane, who would say then, give people a choice. If they want to take their children back to school, let it be so, because there's also an argument that is made on losing the entire school here, because we're being told that this virus is with us to stay.
The choice, you cannot ask for people to make a choice as to whether they should break the law by simply saying, no, I'm going to take my kids out of school, or I'm going to take a risk of going to school and being infected. That is a false choice. It is not a choice. It is a choice only available to some who, when they do go to that school generally has proper infrastructure, proper sanitation, etc. And you and I know very well that those are a few select schools for South Africans who have the income to support it. Let us talk about the poor people in this country and ask ourselves a legitimate question. What choice have we left them? Are we saying to them that education is a right, they must put secondary? Or maybe that we're saying the right to life must be a life that must be weighed up against every other right in this country. It is not a choice, and therefore I reject that notion. And that's why I'm asking for all citizens across the country to stand in solidarity with poor South Africans and say, we want to send a message to government on Friday to stay away from school.
Mr. Maimane, thank you very much indeed for your time. One SA movement leader, Mmusi Maimane, making that call there for all teachers and learners to stay at home on Friday in solidarity. You would recall, of course, that One Movement South Africa had gone to court to stop the learning and teaching process from going ahead. That was not successful. So Mmusi Maimane says in solidarity, due to the rising numbers of COVID-19 and fatalities, that teachers and learners should take matters into their own hands.